Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a session at the Munich Security Conference that no matter where you live in the world, what we will be discussing matters to you. Bridging troubled waters, de-escalation in the Gulf. As many of you will know, the Gulf, that region of the world, has been a flashpoint in the past year in the tensions between Iran and the United States, in the tensions between Iran and its neighbors. A tension that has rattled the oil markets and the shipping companies because that is where the Strait of Hormuz, that critical waterway, that 20% of the world's oil supplies pass through. But most of all, of course, that region matters to the region. And this very session, the structure of this session, is like a bridge over troubled waters. Because we will begin with a conversation with His Excellency, sitting in the front row, the Foreign Minister of Iran, Mohammad Javad Zarif. And in that conversation, we will discuss the Persian Gulf. At the end of this session, I will have another conversation with the Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, except we will be discussing the Arabian Gulf. And in the middle, we will have a panel discussion in which we will refer to something called the Gulf, which, as Iran likes to point out, you must not confuse with the Gulf of Mexico, and you must not do like the South Koreans and call this body of water the Arab-Persian Gulf. We can't even agree on what to call it, but what we can agree on is how it matters a lot. So let us begin, this is on the record, with Mohammad Javad Zarif joining me on the stage for a 15-minute conversation.
I have one here.
Your Excellency, the last year saw so many moments, as you know, where it was said that Iran and the United States were on the brink of war. You've got a big smile on your face now. How would you describe the moment that we meet?
Well, first of all, a very good afternoon to all of you. I don't know why they moved us to this room. The bigger room was much better. But I'm happy to be here anyway. And why do we need to discuss about geography? Do I come and call the Gulf or the Sea of Oman the Sea of Baluchistan? Or do I come and call the Arabian Sea the Iranian Sea? Why do we, it's beneath all of us.
But let's discuss the consequences.
Let's discuss the situation. I think we can look backward and try to rehash our differences. That's not what I intend to do today.
But let's look forward, because I think everyone here worries that these tensions could escalate again.
That's exactly where I want to go.
How do you describe this moment?
This moment is a very dangerous moment, because the United States has been misled. I believe President Trump, unfortunately, does not have good advisors. He's been waiting for Iranian government's collapse since he withdrew from the nuclear deal. At that time, John Bolton promised him that maximum pressure will bring us to our knees within few months. Now today, with John Bolton gone, unfortunately, somebody else is trying to mimic John Bolton and promised the president that killing Soleimani will bring people to dance in the streets of Tehran and Baghdad. You saw how many people danced. And then that continuation of maximum pressure would bring us to our knees before his re-election campaign. I think John Bolton was proven wrong. Now President Trump himself admits that had he kept John Bolton in office, we would be in World War VI. I think the new advice that he's receiving is as wrong as we saw in the funeral processions for General Soleimani in 4 Iraqi cities and many Iranian cities. Probably something that Iraq has not seen, and probably something that Iran has not seen.
So is your information is that President Trump has been convinced by his advisors who say that Iran now, under US sanctions, is at the point of collapse. So therefore, don't think about extending a hand to Iran to engage in talks. Engage in talks. You do need talks. You need to get out of this crisis.
No, we need respect for obligation.
But you do need some kind of way out of this crisis.
We did talk. John Kerry and I spent more time together than we spent with our wives for 2 years. And John Kerry was not an individual. He was carrying the title Secretary of State of the United States of America. I did not talk to John Kerry. I talked to the US Secretary of State. And then what we agreed was then complemented by Security Council. It was not a bilateral agreement. It was a multilateral agreement. And President Trump simply decided that he didn't like Obama, so he could leave. So there is no point, there is no point in talking over something you talked about. You don't buy a horse twice.
Is there a possibility of moving toward the talks? In his State of the Union address, President Trump said, and I quote, "We are here. Let us see which road they choose. It is totally up to them."
No, actually, it's totally up to him whether he wants to take the United States and lead a country that is lawless, that is law-breaking, that does not respect its international agreement, that anybody who signs a deal with them could only count for the next 4 years or the remainder of the presidency, or whether we want to deal with a country that can, in fact, be following its own words. So that's about the United States. But now we're talking about the Persian Gulf.
Well, let me just ask you one last question on this. Are President Macron or Shinzo Abe of Japan or even Vladimir Putin of Russia, are they coming to you and saying, we can help? We can help you to try to open talks again with the United States?
It's not about opening talks with the United States. It's about bringing the United States back to the negotiating table that is already there. We meet every 3 months around that negotiating table. Until April 2018, Brian Hook was at that negotiating table. He decided to leave. Now the United States can come back to the negotiating table. But unfortunately, the suggestions by Macron and by Abe and others have all fallen onto deaf ears because President Trump, as I told you, has been convinced that we are about to collapse. So he doesn't want to talk to a collapsing regime. I think he is wrong. I think they say that they're not about regime change, but that's everything they want. Everything they want, and they have wanted that for the past 41 years. And they have failed for the past 41 years. They just have to admit that Iran is a reality in this region. Now, can we move to the region?
Yes, okay. So just one, if diplomacy can't work, what about the military side? You have said that the attack on the 2 military bases in Iraq.
1 military base. I said 1 military base.
1 military base, okay.
The United States said 2.
That was it.
That was it.
That was it. That was your message, and that there would be no more revenge. Is that correct? Because we've heard different messages from the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei and from the IRGC commanders.
No, actually,
that the revenge would continue.
You've heard the same message. One message is that there was a military attack, a cowardly military attack. Excuse me for saying that, at night against a civilian car carrying our general. That was an act of terror. Definition of terrorism. They couldn't face Soleimani at the war front, so they hit him when he was conducting a peace mission. We responded to one of the bases from which the attack had originated. And we informed the government of Iraq beforehand, and then we responded. The military response in self-defense under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter was concluded.
And that's it?
That's it. But
we still hear warnings which make people nervous.
But what the United States did, based on misinformation and disinformation, was that it raged a lot of people. A lot of people are outraged by what the United States did. And they're not our proxies. Please stop using that word.
So you mean groups?
These are these are not groups.
Militias?
These are, not militias.
Men with guns?
These are human beings.
With guns?
Militias don't come to the street carrying somebody's coffin. Human beings come to the streets, and they came to the streets not just in Iraq and Iran, but they came to the streets in Russia, they came to the streets in India. Yesterday, they were posting Soleimani's picture at the Colosseum in Rome. These are not our proxies. These are human beings who are tired of bullying, who are tired of lawlessness, who want to have dignity.
I didn't use the word proxy, you did, so you put it on the agenda.
You use all sorts of words, militias, proxies.
So just to be clear, the revenge of the Islamic Republic of Iran is over.
No.
No.
You see, we're not a revengeful country. We said we take a military action against a military operation. Now, killing of Soleimani and others, they killed an Iraqi government official and an Iraqi military leader. That has consequences from the population. We don't control them.
Okay.
You see,
okay, you made your point.
No, let me say
your point.
Okay,
yes.
let me just. The United States conducts operations and wants to be immune from the consequences. That doesn't happen. You cannot blame us that the United States, the President of the United States, just released the so-called deal of the century, basically enraging the entire Arab world and the Palestinian population. If there is violence in response to the deal of the century, Iran is not responsible for that. If the United States kills an Iraqi commander and there are responses, if the United States kills 25 Iraqi people and there are responses from the Iraqis, it doesn't have to be Iran. Iraqis are human beings. Iraqis are dignified people. Iraq has a proud history. So Iraqis respond to the United States. They don't need an Iran to tell them to respond to somebody who is occupying your territory.
Okay.
I mean, this is a fact of life. Believe it, please. Otherwise, you will live in ignorance.
There's a lot of other aspects of that we could discuss, but let's just move on to the Gulf, to the Persian Gulf. Iran last September launched its own initiative, the Hormuz Peace Endeavor. Hope. But did hope die in the water?
No, it didn't. We actually...
But Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, they didn't take up the offer.
That's their problem.
So they say it's too big. It's too big at this state of tensions. They say it's a PR exercise.
No, it's not a PR.
Start at the beginning.
It's not a PR exercise. Liz, we presented a package for cooperation in the Persian Gulf in 1985, at the height of the tanker war, in a letter from the then Foreign Minister, Dr. Velayati, to the then Secretary General Javier Pérez Recuellar. That is a document of the Security Council, 1985. Based on that letter, there is a paragraph in Security Council Resolution 598, which ended the Iran-Iraq war, paragraph 8, which calls on the Secretary General to consult with the countries in the region to form a security architecture for the region. By the way, that Security Council resolution under Chapter 7 also calls on other countries in paragraph 5 to refrain from actions that would exacerbate the situation. Exactly what the United States is doing right now in the Persian Gulf. Now, what we did was we repeated that. I have repeated offers for a security and cooperation scheme in the Persian Gulf. I said that we could follow the Helsinki model of having principles and confidence building measures so that we could discuss it. I offered to Qatar as well as Kuwait. The president offered to both countries the possibility of starting an Iran-GCC dialogue. We offered to Oman in 2014 a package for confidence building and cooperation in the Persian Gulf. And we finally went at the highest level. The president of the Islamic Republic of Iran presented hope, the Hormuz Peace Initiative. The beauty of this is that we don't have to have this childish quarrel over the name. Hormuz is strait. Everybody accepts that this strait is called Hormuz. Now, we call it Hormuz Peace Initiative or Peace Endeavor because we want to use a terminology that will not give people excuses to derogate from this. Now, it is a proposal by President Rouhani. Then when he came back to Iran from the UN, you said it's a PR campaign. It's
but that's what, no, I'm not saying that.
Hold on,
yes.
hold on.
Your Gulf partners.
Well, no, not all of them. Kuwait has responded to us. Qatar has responded to us. Oman has responded to us. Iraq has responded to us. So it's not our Gulf partner.
Okay.
It is one or two countries, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who want to have tension in our region. I was going to strike a conciliatory tone today, and I won't let you to push me into Nabi. No, let me
let's
finish
talk
this.
reconciliation.
We wrote to the King of Saudi Arabia. We don't have diplomatic relations with them. We wrote to the King of Bahrain. We don't have diplomatic relations with them. We wrote to the President of the United Arab Emirates. We have very low diplomatic relations with them. We wrote to the Emir of Kuwait. We wrote to the Emir of Qatar. We wrote to the Sultan of Oman. We wrote to the late Sultan of Oman. We wrote to the President and Prime Minister of Iraq. President Rouhani wrote to them. 3 of them did not reply. We did not tell them that this is our initiative. We said these are ideas. Please help us enrich the ideas, and please help us implement the ideas. Now, if they do not want to take our offer, if they believe that security can be purchased like weapons from the United States, I can assure them that that security will not be forthcoming.
So let's look at something which does seem to be working. That there is, it seems, for the past few months, greater contacts behind the scenes between Iran and the United Arab Emirates, between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Unfortunately, not with Saudi Arabia.
Well, let's look at that first. For many years now, as you know, there have been track 2, back channel at a lower level, dialogue between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Academics, low-level officials.
Track 2 and academic, yes, but nothing at the government level. And that's not that we are not ready for it. I'm ready for it today.
Have you had signals from Saudi Arabia?
Unfortunately not.
Wasn't Qasem Soleimani said to be carrying a letter from the Iranian response to Saudi Arabia?
What?
Iraq said that Qasem Soleimani, when he was killed, was carrying a letter.
No, it wasn't a letter. Qasem Soleimani, just like what I have said, we have been open to all invitations for dialogue. When the Prime Minister of Pakistan came to Iran, he suggested that we should open a dialogue with Saudi Arabia. We said we are ready tomorrow. Both the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif as well as the current Prime Minister Imran Khan, both came to Iran. Let me tell you something. I spoke to Qasem Soleimani. You know Qasem Soleimani and I were good friends. And I believe the West owes a lot to Qasem Soleimani, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to save the Bonn Conference on Afghanistan. But let me tell you, Qasem Soleimani and I agreed when I became foreign minister to send a message to Saudi Arabia that we are willing to sit down with you and discuss Bahrain, Yemen. At that time, Yemen was boiling, but not such a turmoil. Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. That how we can accommodate each other to work with the people of these countries, because Iran and Saudi Arabia are in no position to decide for the people of these countries, but we can stop fighting over these countries. I told him, if you believe that I do not control anything, if you believe that you said I'm PR, if you believe, okay, now that's what they say, and you will hear from the Saudi foreign minister. Hold on, I told them, I sent a message through one of those track 2 people that I am prepared to bring Qasem Soleimani so that we could talk. The response that I received from the late Prince Saud Al Faisal was that Arab world is none of your business. Period.
But let's bring it up to 2020.
Arab world is our business because we live in the Arab world. We live among the Arabs. We have had 14 centuries of work with the Arab world.
Let's come back from the 14th century to 2020. What is happening?